Let's get back to Radagon's children. Most of them inherited his red hair, variants being Miquella, Rykard, and Melina. Melina has pink hair. Pink is a color combination of red and white, alluding to the alchemical merging of the Red King and White Queen. The Red King is sulfur, the active, volatile, and fiery principle, while the White Queen is Mercury, the material, passive, fixed principle. Mercury, like a larval tier, has substance, but it has no definitive form on its own. It needs an active principle, like the crucible, to shape it. The alchemical union between the Red King and the White Queen can be shown via the red-haired champion Radagon and Rennala of the Full Moon, the red heritage of the crucible merging with the white blood of the Albinaurics. Elden Ring lore creator George R.R. Martin uses this same color symbolism in A Song of Ice and Fire with the weirwood trees, trees with smooth, bone-white wood and blood-red sap, most having faces carved into their trunks. A weirwood will live forever if undisturbed. Weirwoods are based on Yggdrasil, the pagan tree of life. As such, weirwoods also share commonalities with the Erdtree because they both share similar roots of inspiration, both being trees of life that can absorb souls and contain deities. Weirwoods are considered sacred to the followers of the old gods, and the children of the forest believe weirwoods are the gods, while the Erdtree is a manifestation of the Elden Beast, aka Greater Will. Quick side note. Weirwoods function like a mushroom, containing no seeds and having a continent-spanning interconnected root system. Mushrooms are only part of a fungi's body, the rest remains underneath the soil. In Westeros, weirwoods are connected with each other through a giant fungal mycelium, an underground organism symbiotic with the species of the tree. While on Elden Ring, the Erdtree's roots stretch throughout the lands between as well as underneath it. The Erdtree may have been attempting to connect with minor Erdtrees in order to grow its fungal network, its influence essentially. As observed by another, the two fingers closely resemble dead man's fingers, a cosmopolitan saprobic fungus. Jack is a mimic, a fellow lore analyst, granted me the insight about the Erdtree fungus theory. If you enjoy Elden Ring lore or the manga Berserk, then you should definitely check out his channel. Melina's origin is a great mystery, but her pink hair to me denotes a link to the red-tinted crucible, and her father being Radagon. Melina uses the Blade of Calling. Its associated skill is the Blade of Gold, which is an incantation used by the Red Wolf of Radagon. The wolf utilizes the Blade of Gold to symbolize Melina, and utilizes Magic Glintblade to symbolize Ranni. Magic Glintblade being an old sorcery of the Carrion royal family. Melina does seem to be partnered with Ranni in providing tools to assist the Tarnished on their journey. This is more obvious in the manga Road to the Erdtree. They share a physical and spectral appearance. To go a step further, I think it's possible that they were twin souls, used to represent the twin bird, outer god of death. As for Melina's mother, her internal name in the game file is Marika of Daughter. Plus, Melina echoes the words of Queen Marika the Eternal at certain locations. Melina states that she thinks Bok misses his mother, and that he wants someone to tell him that he's beautiful. In part 1, we covered how Bok's quest is a reflection of Radagon's transformation into Marika's mimic. Melina then asks, does being born of a mother mean one behaves in such a manner? Melina was not born of a mother because she was born via the Amber Egg, the same egg that birthed Ranni, sap derived from the foot of the Erdtree. Yet, how is this possible if Marika is her mother? Well, because Radagon used Marika's hair via the Golden Needle and replicated her DNA as he became her mimic. Thus, Melina is related to Marika. Interestingly, Melina and Ranni are born from the same source, and both die in the same way, both being burned as a sacrifice for a grander purpose. In the time when there was no Erdtree, death was burned in ghost flame, and the Deathbirds were keepers of that fire. A Deathbird drops the red-feathered talisman that states glory's end awaits those who cling so tenaciously to life, while the blue-feathered branch sword states to render up a death worth offering. Both talismans are referring to living a life of purpose, to be made into a worthy sacrifice. Melina sacrifices her life as the Kindling Maiden for the purpose of allowing the Tarnished to enter the Erdtree, in the hopes that you will establish a new age. Ranni sacrifices her life for the purpose of the Knight of the Black Knives, both sacrifices requiring fire. The colors of the branch sword talismans coordinate with the twin kite shield, which represents the twin bird, mother of the Deathbirds. I believe these colors are also established through Melina and Ranni. Melina sacrifices herself within the Forge of the Giants. The fire giants that once utilized this forge had the distinctive trait of red hair that connects them to the crucible. Ranni sacrifices herself atop the divine tower within Liurnia, a region associated with water, as Liurnia is sinking into the lake in which it resides. Both Melina and Ranni are in spectral form, both related to sacrifice for a greater purpose, both provide the Tarnished with helpful tools that pertain to death, and both share a physical appearance. Thus, they could be twin souls that represent the twin bird. Radagon's other children have more apparent ties to the crucible. Rykard joins with the Great Serpent, fangs, scales, and tail, and Radahn becomes more beast-like once the rot has melted away his mind, fangs and horns. Melina's winged helm feature wings, obviously. Wings contain feathers, and the crucible feather talisman states the feathers are a vestige of the crucible of primordial life. Moreover, Radagon's twins, Miquella and Melina, are more aligned to insects rather than beasts, specifically insects with the ability to metamorphosize. Melina being related to the Aeonian butterfly, which states, according to myth, these butterflies were once the wings of the goddess of rot herself, the Scarlet Aeonia acting as cocoon to birth her anew as the embodiment of the scarlet rot. Miquella, like Melina, is associated with a butterfly, and forms a cocoon in an attempt to rebirth himself, specifically the nascent butterfly, which appears as if it had just emerged from its cocoon for its entire life. Nascent means just coming into existence and beginning to display signs of future potential. The term has Latin roots that once meant being born. I believe the signs of future potential are related to Miquella's emergence of the cocoon and his goal of becoming the One Great, as hinted at within the Candletree wooden shield, the tree being the Erdtree, the 7 flames being the 7 shard bearers, and the fire itself being the required sacrifice needed to complete his goal of rebirth, as the hand below represents the One Great. Interestingly, Miquella doesn't share his father's red hair, instead having golden hair, like Marika. Based off of Miquella's appearance, he could have more of Marika's genetics. Red hair is a recessive trait, which means that only those with 2 redhead versions of the gene, one from the mother and one from the father, will have red hair. If one of the parents passed on a version of the gene associated with dark hair, for example, the individual will have dark hair and will simply be a carrier of the redhead gene, which he could then pass on to his children. This is how a child of 2 non-redhead parents can grow a red mane, and this is also why red hair must be inherited from both parents and not only from one of them. Keeping this in mind, it further identifies how if Rennala was the biological mother of Ranni, Rykard, and Radahn, they would have darker hair. The fact that they have red hair means that both of their parents had the red hair gene, meaning that it was most likely Radagon and the amber egg that created the children. Again, I believe Rennala is unable to give birth due to her larval tier ancestry. Radagon is a mimic of Marika, a transformation via the science of the larval tier. Thus his genetics became merged with the same building blocks as the Albinaurics. While the Albinaurics are truly impressive creations, they are not without their flaws, specifically their blood clots that lead to the loss of their mobility. Radagon's children share not only the red-haired heritage of the crucible, but the white blood of the Albinaurics, again, red and white. For instance, the Gelmir Knight helm was once worn by knights loyal to Rykard. Its crest of red feathers symbolizes Rykard's pedigree as Lord Radagon's son. The crest denotes his recorded ancestry. The helm's plumage is red, with strands of white feathers peeking out. A recent poll shows that a majority of individuals feel that Rykard has red hair, and I agree that this would be the most logical option, due to his father and siblings also having red hair. However, it's odd that in some depictions, his hair seems to be either gold or grayish white. The gold stemming from Marika's genetics, as Radagon became Marika's mimic via the gold needle, the transformation possibly taking place at the Church of Vows. Jack explained that it could be gray, as he could have his own illness that he wished to shed. LNE mentioned that it could be related to leprosy, as Rykard is pictured wearing a mask, a possible reference to King Baldwin of Jerusalem, who also wore a mask due to his own leprosy. Keep in mind, Box hair turns gray after his transformation via the larval tier. The white being a nod to his Albinauric heritage, Rykard sits within his paintings, becomes a snake, a creature known as Slither, and is connected to the item Giza's Wheel. The design for Giza's Wheel was adopted for use as the iconic weapon wielded by Iron Virgins. Iron, or abductor virgins, are large metal constructs, resembling a statue of a saintly woman cradling a small silver baby to her chest. The name implies that the baby does not belong to the maiden holding it, as the maiden is a virgin, unless it is alluding to Immaculate Conception. Abductor virgins beneath Volcano Manor drop the Inquisitor's Durandal, an instrument of torture used on nobles. This instrument states it is a candlestick connived by a thorough mind. The term connived can be found in Matthew 1:20 of the Christian Bible, being used to describe the divine operation of the Holy Spirit in bringing Jesus Christ into the world via a miracle of a virgin birth. Candlesticks are forbidden items within the Golden Order, as they represent a surreptitious prophecy of cardinal sin. The spectral candelabra is a candlestick that will appear to show you hidden locations within the lands between. Their real-world physical counterparts reside within the Erdtree. To enter the portal to the Erdtree, the Tarnished must first light multiple candles that are held by statues of Miquella, again a candlestick convived by a thorough mind. Thorough meaning taking pains to do something carefully and completely, like a grand plan. Another quick side note. The torture of nobles, abundance of snakes, and the use of fire imagery that occurs within Volcano Manor makes me think that Mesmer is somehow related. Volcano Manor was a place of birth, where rituals took place to produce the Snake Men, as well as possibly the Godskins, as the Godskin seal contains obsidian, a stone formed when volcanic lava cools quickly. An obsidian stone is found in Mesmer's spear. A Godskin noble that resides at the Temple of Egle drops the serpent's amnion, and the Godskins share traits of a snake, namely their tails and association of shedding skin, even if they shed the skins of others instead. The snakes outside of the abductor virgins are gold, while the ones inside are silver, which could represent the hidden larval tier heritage within the Golden Order ranks, i.e. the demigods. We see some snake men within Volcano Manor that have appendages resembling eggs. The cosmic egg or Orphic egg is a mythological motif found in the cosmogonies of many cultures, represented by a snake wrapped around an egg. The egg acts as a beginning, and the universe or some primordial being comes into existence by hatching from that egg, sometimes laying on the primordial waters of the earth. The motif likely stems from the simple elements of an egg, including its ability to offer nourishment and give rise to new life, as reflected by the Latin proverb, omni vivium ex ovio, all life comes from an egg. The cosmic egg connects to Miquella's pursuit of rebirth via his cocoon planted within the Erdtree. The slumbering egg is prized as a symbol of the most sublime slumber, an owl egg that will never hatch. This alludes to how Miquella's cocoon did not hatch. The owl is also found engraved on the walls of the Elfiel, brace of the Erdtree. Why does the Erdtree need braces? It was watered with Miquella's blood since it was a sapling, yet Miquella had Albinauric genetics from his father Radagon, thus the tree could not stand on its own, a fate mirroring the Albinaurics. Examples of Miquella's mobility issues are evident by his modes of travel, as it is all but confirmed that he was the prior owner of Torrent, using the steed like Loretta or Radahn to move without the use of his legs. Outside of Torrent, Miquella travels by the use of astral projection through the dreams of the inhabitants of the lands between, under the guise of Saint Trina. All of Radagon's children seem to have these mobility issues. Radahn's remembrance states that he learned gravity magic to ensure that Leonard wouldn't be crushed as he continued to grow massive in size. Many enemies that battle on horseback can be dismounted. Radahn and Loretta, to my knowledge, cannot, which could be because that without their steeds, they would be immobilized due to their Albinauric genetic mobility issues. This image displays Margaret the Fell Omen battling against Radahn. Leonard is not present, and Radahn is not standing, nor is he upright. Just as the Albinauric archers use direwolves to remain mobile, Radahn uses Leonard. Radahn is massive in size, which could be connected to his Albinauric blood as well. Philia, Rennala, and the attempts to create an artificial lord in the Eternal Cities are all larger in size, just like Radahn. However, his size could also relate to Radagon's crucible heritage and connection to the fire giants, as mentioned in Part 1. In cut dialogue, Enya would call Radahn Slayer of Giants, and there is a skeletal structure of what appears to be a giant near the Caelid Colosseum. Radahn being a slayer of giants would fit with his persona of following in Godfrey's footsteps, as Radahn was captivated by the Lord of the Battlefield. Godfrey put the fire giants to the sword, as stated by Melina in an echo of Marika. Radahn's Great Rune states that it burns to resist the encroachment of the Scarlet Rod. Radahn's knights are known as the Redmanes. These knights have their crest burned onto their armor, not to mention their use of flame chariots, which bear the faces of the fire giants. After Radahn is defeated, Iron Fist Alexander takes parts of his body to add to himself. When healing his cracks in the lava pools of Mount Gelmir, he states, "O mountain of fire, bake me in your flames." Alexander also appears as an NPC summoned to fight against the fire giant. Plus, when battling against the Tarnished during his final encounter, he is immune to fire damage. All this to say that Alexander is connected to both Radahn and the fire giants. The ice dragons were once lords of the mountaintops long ago, until they were defeated by the fire giants and chased from the peak. The forge of the giants interestingly features dragons engraved onto it. Dragons are a perfect example of the primordial crucible, as they contain every aspect. They are an ancient melding of life. The forge's dragon depictions could simply be due to their association with the ability to breathe fire. A forge is a place of creation, where metals are heated and crafted into new forms. The dragons were not the only group that engaged in battle with the giants, as the Knights of Zamor have also challenged the fire giants since ancient times. Armor worn by the Knights of Zamor states that they were hailed as heroes in the war against the giants. The armor features metallic scales, or feathers. They are primarily found in the Zamor ruins in the mountaintops of the giants, again a place once home to the ice dragons. The incantation Borealis' Mist transforms the caster into a dragon to spew icy breath, dropped from Borealis, the freezing fog. Borealis most likely returned to the icy peaks after the removal of the giants. The hero of Zamor can utilize a spell called Frost Breath, connecting them to the power of the dragons. Zamor Ice Storm states, cloaked in icy tempests, the Knights of Zamor have challenged the fire giants since ancient times. A tempest is a violent windy storm. Dragons are associated with storms, as the Dragon Lord's seat lies at the heart of the storm beyond time in Farum Azula, a place of ruin caught in a perpetual tornado. The fact that the Knights of Zamor utilize icy storms like the dragons that once ruled there could mean that the Knights have been taught their sorceries in the same way that Fortisax and Lanciax taught the Knights of Lendel's ancient dragon cult. Interestingly, an ancient hero of Zamor within the Weeping Peninsula, Evergaol, drops Radagon's Scar Seal. Knights of Zamor appear as tall, slender humanoids. The ancient hero of Zamor fights in a similar fashion to Radagon, walking confidently toward its opponent, wielding a weapon in its right hand and using a leaping slam attack like Radagon's Gold Breaker. The Zamor Knight's Frost Breath even resembles the Elden Shattering attack Radagon uses. Radagon's only true weakness is fire. This weakness is shared by the Knights of Zamor. The Knight's Mask states that they are worn by long-lived warriors, while Newmen are also described as being long-lived. I am unsure of the Knight's true origin, but they share many common traits with Radagon, and possibly with the Newmen as well. The character that I believe shares the most in common with Radagon is his son Miquella, both associated with needles, both created Golden Order fundamentalist incantations, both wish to become a god. Radagon wears a chain of red glintstone, displaying a connection to blood sacrifice. Miquella is no stranger to blood sacrifice, as he watered the Haligtree with his own blood, as referenced by the Haligtree Knight armor. The sacramental bud was believed to originate long ago from a strain of buds cultivated with youthful sacramental blood, 3 of which can be found within the Haligtree. These buds are essential for crafting bewitching branches, key items in allowing Miquella to compel the affection of others. Miquella is heavily associated with blood, displayed through his connection with needles, the Formless Mother, growth of the Haligtree, and sacramental bud. Miquella is a fusion of crucible heritage and Albinauric genetics, red and white, king and queen, death and resurrection. A belief in the alchemical union is to find balance, to create the prima materia, the Philosopher's Stone. The stone is said to have the ability to physically turn lead into monoatomic gold, although it can be interpreted as a metaphor for turning our leaden human experience into spiritual gold. The stone's abilities were thought to cure illnesses, prolong life, and bring about spiritual revitalization. Miquella wanted to do much of the same, to cure his sister, and to heal the lands between of its stagnation, via a grand rebirth. Tezcatlipoca is a representation of unity in the Aztec state, an agent for its growth and ever-present change. He is referred to as the smoking mirror. Smoking meaning ever-changing and unclear, mirror meaning reflection of the individual, social, and cosmic whole. Tezcatlipoca was the soul of the world, a creator as he turned into a snake alongside his brother to form a new world from Cipactili, a primordial crocodilian earth monster. The brothers used Cipactili's sacrifice for the good of mankind, who lived from her body, as she became the earth. Therefore, it was understood that she must be rewarded with sacrifice, the blood and hearts of men. Tezcatlipoca was the god of night, sorcery, and destiny, associated with obsidian and the north. Tezcatlipoca mirrors Miquella, as they are both agents of change. They are both creators and both use sacrifice for the good of humanity. Miquella's most known sacrifice being the Haligtree, found in the furthest northern reaches of the lands between. Miquella is related to destiny as well. Most agree that Melina was sent to defeat Radahn to allow the stars to resume their motion. With the stars in motion, it would allow for an eclipse to provide Godwin with a proper death. Amber starlight is also found in front of a statue of Miquella. Selen explains that golden amber contains the remnants of ancient life, and amber starlight states it commands the fates of the gods, aka destiny. In part 2, we covered Radagon's children, and their connections to both their artificial larval tier ancestry, as well as their crucible heritage. The melding of this red and white possibly representing the creation of the Philosopher's Stone via the alchemical wedding. Some of Radagon's children connect to fire, others possibly to giants. We noted an interesting connection between Radagon's form as Marika's mimic and the ancient hero of Zamor, and we scratched the surface on Miquella's connection to Tezcatlipoca. More evidence to follow in part 3. the conclusion to Radagon's Blood and Heritage series. As always, I sincerely appreciate your time, and I hope you all have a wonderful week.